Do you have the desire to be a prepper or a homesteader? Do you see things in this world going crazy? Well, today we're going to talk about 11 skills that you need to acquire right now to be able to do so. Let's go. So each one of these 11 categories also has subsets of skills that are contained within it. So we're going to cover all of those. Do not click off or miss a single point that we're going to make in this video, because your life or your family's life may depend on it. Now, it's not essential that you become an expert right away in all of these skills, but you need to work toward that goal. Hey, I'm not an expert in everything yet, but I work daily to do that. So first skill is food acquisition. Now that's going to cover a lot of different areas, like I said, some subcategories. 1 is gardening, 2 is hunting, and 3 is food gathering. Even in gardening, you're going to look at things like tree planting and taking care of fruit trees. So let's talk about that one first, gardening. So of course, food acquisition along with water acquisition and shelter are always going to be at the top of your list. But within food acquisition, gardening, I think, is hugely important, especially for a homesteader. Growing food for your family is paramount. So with gardening, there is a lot of different knowledge to acquire. One, most important, is soil science and understanding how to enrich your soil to grow better food, better plants, more healthy plants. And the second is being able to manage your water usage on your garden, be able to irrigate it properly. So breaking down further into that gardening category, you're going to need to understand how to control pests, the different pests for different areas of the country. You're going to need to understand how to kill them organically if that's what you want to do. You've got to understand pruning different fruits, vegetables, and things like that. Controlling disease. You've got to understand planting times for different fruits and vegetables, and that's going to vary for zone to zone across the United States, and it can even be these little subzones that you get into, like my area. There is a ton of knowledge that needs to be acquired to be able to properly and grow food for your family and to grow enough for them. You're going to need to understand what varieties of vegetables grow best in the area that you live in. There is a wealth and a breadth of knowledge that comes with gardening that you need to start learning right now. So with all that gardening knowledge you need to acquire, you also need to acquire knowledge about how to eat off the land. We did a video on foraging on our particular homestead in our area of the country. You can go check that out up here, but it is important to know what grows wild around you. So if you need to supplement your diet with anything wild, then you can do that. That's also a great skill for a prepper to have if you have to bug out of the city and get out of Dodge. Now, another piece of that food acquisition skill is hunting or animal husbandry. Both of them obviously different skills, but they comes in the meat category. Now for us, for me personally, I gave up meat years ago for health reasons. I had to do it. But I used to be an avid deer hunter, and we used to slaughter hundreds of chickens per year. So I understand how to do all that, although we don't do that here on our homestead now. But for you, acquiring those skills might be necessary. So you need to look deep into how to raise different types of animals. We do raise chickens on our homestead for the eggs and for the chicken droppings for our compost pile, which is important too. Actually, I need to add that also to our gardening skill is composting. Composting is a great skill to have to learn how to build your soil for your garden. Now let's move on to water acquisition. So obviously water is life, and you're going to need to have some sort of water source or multiple water sources on your homestead. Those can come in the form of rainwater collection, a pond, a creek, a spring, or like we have, a well. It's important to understand how to claim water from each one of those sources, whether it's a well like this and maintaining the pump and all the equipment it takes to run the well, or to have a ram pump hooked up to some sort of water source, either a pond or a creek or a spring any one of those, understanding how to set up a rainwater collection system, all of those are important skills to acquire. And with that, we'll jump into the next skill, which kind of goes along with it, is water purification. Now, not all those sources are going to be clean, especially a pond, but a slow-moving creek or the rainwater that you collect can need some purification as well. Actually, even your well, depending on what's down under that ground, it needs to be cleaned before you drink it. So personally for us, we have coliform bacteria in that well right there. We are on a rural community water system as well, but we will be switching over to this one. So we need to shock this one. We need to learn how to shock it and shock with chlorine, shock the coliform bacteria out of there, maintain that, but we also use a Berkey water filter that filters our drinking water to an amazing level, and it takes out everything. I would highly recommend looking at water purification systems like the Berkey because it is so important to have that for your drinking water. So next we're going to look at building a fire. Building a fire is hugely important for two different reasons. One for cooking and two for heating. So of course, along with learning how to make the fire for those two purposes, you need to learn how to process and acquire the wood to be able to make those fires. Learning how to use a hatchet, an axe, a maul, a chainsaw, and a saw are important skills to have to be able to even process the firewood so that you can heat and cook with it. And that's going to push us into our next segment, and that's learning how to use tools. Now, as you can see, we have a ton of different tools because there are just a ton of different jobs that you need to learn how to do out here on the homestead. Now, when it comes to tools, the list is absolutely endless. We've got some antique hand tools here. These are from my great-grandfather, and we've got some modern battery-powered tools that I just acquired. Now, it's not just woodworking tools or tools to repair mechanical things or metalworking tools, it's gardening tools. There are a ton of different things that you need to acquire and learn how to use. So building upon learning how to use basic tools, we're going to transition into construction. So construction is going to cover carpentry, roofing, fencing, and things like plumbing. So we recently plumbed in this line to bring water into the barn for our chickens. And recently we've also added a frost or freeze-proof hydrant out in the garden for the irrigation. We also put in a drainage system to claim the gray water from our laundry to take it out to a rain garden. If you haven't seen that video, check out up here, it's really cool. But also knowing what things to buy, how to do basic repairs is important too, just in case you have a line that freezes or something breaks in the house. There's a lot to learn with plumbing, but it's pretty easy to do. You'll acquire that skill really fast. One of the ideas of homesteading is to be more self-sufficient. So learning how to build and construct things yourself is really important. Also how to repair and fix things on your home. We've built a lot here on our property. We built a greenhouse, we've got a garden shed, we did all the fencing everywhere. We've got a trellis system for multiple different things. We built this chicken coop and our chicken run. We'll be re-roofing the stable soon. And of course, we've done a lot of repair work to this old home. So hopefully in the near future, we will be blessed to be able to build an addition onto this house, which will house a dirty kitchen to process all the food from the garden and to be able to can it and things like that. So additionally, along with that basic tool knowledge and the knowledge of construction and how to put things together, you also need to know in its separate engine mechanics. Because if you've got equipment, both large and small on your homestead, you need to learn how to maintain it. Especially if you're relying on things like this to be able to cut that firewood to heat your home or to cook your dinner. Now the next skill is incredibly important. People do not focus on it enough, and that's personal first aid. This may look like a small kit, but it is packed full with extra trauma equipment, like a tourniquet, Israeli-style bandages, and quick clot. We did a full video on our individual first aid kit. You can check it out up here. But understanding basic first aid skills, especially if, say, you're running your chainsaw on a remote part of your property, is huge. And similarly, say if one of my kids got injured, maybe they're climbing a tree and they fell out of a tree, I need to know how to take care of that. But also, in addition to first aid, acquire skills about how to prevent disease, how to eat healthy, how to understand natural remedies, and things like that. Now this next skill is often overlooked, but it is very, very important. And that's tying knots. Now, whether you're a prepper or a homesteader, tying knots is a very important skill for many different reasons. Tying things around the homestead, tying off things, tying a load on your trailer, tying things in the garden, I use at least once or twice a week. This isn't a knot video, but you should know how to tie at least 5 basic knots. The one I use the most and I like the most is called the bowline or bowline or bowline, depending on who you ask. And that's used to tie a loop in the end of a line that's not going to slip. Along with rope skills are knife skills. You can do so much with a knife. There's so many skills that you can do, from cutting things in the garden, cutting lines, cutting rope, cutting vegetables, skinning animals if you need to, self-defense, whatever it is, a knife is probably my #1 tool that I never go anywhere without. And I recently switched to this Benchmade Griptilian. This knife is unbelievable. Now, I told you there were a few alternative skills that you can acquire, and 2 of those are, and they kind of go together, but animal husbandry, and we kind of touched on that earlier, and also medicine for animals and learning how to take care of your animals. In fact, that is a skill we do have because we have chickens. Learn how to look for an egg-bound chicken, or learn how to look for an impacted crop or something of that nature, some other disease that's affecting your children, or your children. Maybe some of you think of them as your children, but your animals. Now, of course, when it comes to animal husbandry, like for us with fowl, with chickens, we need to know how to incubate the eggs and to get them to hatch out safely and to raise those chicks properly. And if you have cows or sheep or goats or something like that, you're going to need to know how to mate the males and females together and to help the mothers rear the children and all that goes along with that. Now remember, in addition to growing that food in your garden, you need to know how to preserve it. All the methods of canning or freezing or curing or drying, dehydrating, all of that, you need to learn how to do all of those methods of food preservation, because one may work for one thing but not for another. And if you're taking that time to grow all the food in your garden for your family, it has to last through those winter seasons when nothing is growing out there. So the last thing we're going to talk about, I'm putting under alternative skill, and here's why. It is an intensely personal issue with everyone, and that is personal security and self-defense. So whether it's homestead security and securing your property, or it's personal security if you're a prepper and you need to get out of the city and there's a lot of bad stuff going on, it's up to you to acquire the skill that's needed for you. So out here in the homestead, we have wild hogs and coyotes, both of which can be extremely dangerous, not only to you, your young children, but also to your livestock. And we have to take care of that the best way we possibly can. So you probably already know where I stand on the issue of personal security and protection. My friends, I hope this list has helped you with understanding all the skills that you need to become an expert in to be either a homesteader or a prepper. And any one of them can possibly save the life of you or your family. So get to work today learning all of them and becoming experts in all of them. It will take some time, but I know you can do it. Now go click on these videos right here, which shows you all the information we have about raising chickens. Have a great day. We love you. See you next time. Bye.